Hey guys, welcome to a brand new video. Today I'm sharing with you some 10 unspoken rules which tourists who come to Prague keep breaking. Some of these things, they make the locals furious, and some of them, they make you look bad in the worst way. And when I came from the UK, I also done some of the things which I'm going to talk about, and especially when I went into shops, Teresa was so embarrassed of me. So without any time wasted, let's go to the first one. So the first rule has to do with public transport. When it comes to Prague, the locals are expecting some certain things to be done on transport, which you may not know, depending on where you're coming from. So for example, when you're entering into the tram or metro or bus, there's an expectation that people will need to go out of the tram or bus first. So that means you need to stand on the side, let people come out, and then you can enter. And then the other thing is, you're not supposed to play loud music or talk very loudly in the public transport. And also that comes to food, right? If you have some ice cream or some burger or some chips which you want to snack on while you're on the public transport, it causes some smells which people get irritated about. So you definitely need to watch out for that, so that you are being mindful of your surrounding and you are being a good passenger. And then the last thing is, if you go in the transport system, you're going to find there's a special seat, which is usually for disabled people or pregnant or elderly. So that means if you are sitting in that area and if you see some older person come in or someone who's pregnant or handicapped, that means the right thing is for you to stand up and let them also sit down. One thing which makes Prague different from other European cities is the cheap alcohol and cheap drinks, in particular beers, because obviously the Pilsner beer originated from Czech Republic. That means if you're in the Prague city center, you can get a beer for around 50 crown or something like €2 or €3. So it can be easy to drink a lot of beer. You can even see there's so much fun things. For example, here you have a badge, which is a pub, and you can sit there, enjoy the view, and drink a beer. So it is very easy to get so drunk. And one of the problems which people do not like is drunk tourists, especially when it comes to stag do's, because people do love to come here for stag do's as a group, drink a lot in the afternoon, and they start doing silly things in the afternoon and start making noise. So that's something which is not very popular with locals. And one thing which you're going to find, for example, in this embankment, is that at 10 o'clock to 6 a.m., you're not allowed to be making noise here. There's even a sign which is telling you not to make noise. So you really need to be mindful, not getting drunk and becoming a drunk tourist. And when you're walking around, you rarely see a drunk person. Everyone is very composed and people are minding their business very nicely. So don't be a drunk tourist. Something not very popular with Czech people is people who try to skip the line. So imagine you're waiting to get, for example, on this boat, especially in the summertime when it's very busy. There can be a queue of people, maybe you're waiting for like 30 minutes, and someone decides to cut the line. That's something which does not fly. People hate that, and sometimes people do confront you if you find yourself skipping the line and they tell you to go back in the back. So don't make people angry by being less patient and trying to be fast, whether it's food, whether something is about to run out or finish. You really need to be considerate, wait for your turn, or maybe try again later, but skipping the line is not popular. If you are lucky enough to make some friends in Prague who invite you to their apartment, or you booked an Airbnb, which is someone's house, it's very important that you remember this, which is removing your shoes by the entrance. Don't go into people's houses wearing shoes. This is highly offensive. Especially in Prague, there's a lot of dog walkers and dog poop on almost every corner. So they see it as if you are bringing poop into their house on your shoes. So when you're planning to visit someone or go to an Airbnb, make sure you have some nice socks without any holes, and do not wear shoes in the house. It's so offensive. You may not be invited back. Sometimes people will say, don't worry, leave your shoes on, but deep down, if they live in Prague, they don't mean it. They are lying to you. So it's important that you insist to remove your shoes. It's being a good guest. Continuing on the topic about dogs, people in Czech Republic and in Prague, when they are dog owners, they absolutely love their dogs. They compare their dogs to children. They literally love their dogs. It's kind of crazy. What that means for you is that if you are talking to a dog owner and you're referring to their dog, you need to say some nice things, because you can easily offend people when you say bad things about their dog. So that's something to also keep in mind. But it's okay, right, to tell them to pick up their dog poop, especially if they're trying to leave it behind. But otherwise, try to say nice things, especially to dog owners about their dogs. When it comes to going to restaurants in Prague, there's some interesting things which happen, especially on the opening times. So they are open usually from morning to the evening, which is fine, and they don't normally close in the afternoon like you would find, for example, in Spain or Italy. So you know that you're gonna easily find a place to eat during the afternoon. What gets interesting is that if you want, for example, a breakfast menu, you have some places which are very strict about when they stop serving breakfast. For example, it's gonna be at 11:30, usually in the morning, that's when they stop serving. And then they transition the menu into a lunch menu, which is sometimes cheaper, especially in the weekdays. You are able to eat at a lower cost because they have a set menu which you can pick from. When it comes to the closing days, I've noticed more places close on Sundays and Mondays. If you expect a lot of restaurants to be open throughout the weekend, that sometimes is not the case. So it is quite important that you check ahead of time if you want to go to a special restaurant to just make sure it's open. So one thing to know to help you out is, remember, we do have our special bundle, which is a list of some of the best restaurants in Prague. We've visited around 60 places we've put in there which you really liked. So you can check that out in the description, and then you can also get a special map, especially if you're coming for 3 or 5 days to Prague. This is gonna help you plan what you're gonna do and what restaurants to try as you're walking around Prague. So check that out in the description now. Depending on where you're coming from in the world, then if you're used to greeting people as you're walking in the street to say hello, that doesn't fly in Prague. Everyone is busy minding their own business. They are not interested in greeting random people. I think maybe also there's a lot of people within Prague itself. However, if you're from a village, for example, we do live in a smaller village, when you're walking around, it's very nice to say hello to people who are passing by. So you're not gonna find Prague people to be that friendly. They may actually come across to you as cold, especially when you're trying to interact or greet them. They don't smile as much. So to summarize, when you're first meeting the Prague people, they may not smile, but over time they will warm up and they'll be very friendly. One sure way to have a bad time in Prague is by renting a car. This place is a nightmare when it comes to driving a car, or when you want to park somewhere. It's so hard to find parking. And the biggest challenge which you're going to find is that the cars are sharing the same roads as trams. And trams have priority compared to cars, and sometimes the trams just change the direction into where you're driving. So if you're not careful, it's so easy to be hit by a tram, especially on the side of your car. And sometimes you can miss the sign, right? That trams are crossing here, and then bam, it's too late. So it is better for you not to rent a car, especially if you never drove with these trams around. And another irritating thing I find about Prague is that they don't write the signs in English. So you are trying to see, can you drive there? There's no sign which says cars are not allowed. However, you see trams which are going in there, then you see cars on the other side. So it can be easy to break the law. So if you are coming as a tourist to Prague, do not rent a car. One important thing which you can do as a tourist in Prague is to make sure you are following the rules. So if there's some barrier which says do not enter, or something says do not climb, then it is expected that you don't try to be an exception to a special rule. Take, for example, if you're supposed to enter an attraction using one way, but you have some special explanation on why you want to do it a different way. Usually that doesn't fly, as most attractions, they do have a security and they expect you to really follow the rules. So for example, I was in the Prague Castle and I was trying to record some video. I was very low on time and I just asked, can I please just come in for 2 seconds just to take a clip? I had a ticket, but I didn't want to wait in the line. And the security just flat out said, no, you have to wait like everyone else. So that's something which I always have to remember, to always follow the rules and try not to be an exception. So the last thing which I've done, which was incredibly embarrassing now that I think about it, it is haggling. So when I went into some shops, for example, it was a clothes shop or a restaurant, I always asked, can I get a discount? Can you take 15% off? Which is something which sometimes works, for example, in England, and it's very popular thing to do, especially in Asian and African countries. But in Czech, that is not normal. That's absolutely weird. And Teresa used to cringe every time I tried to haggle with the shop assistant. Like, please, can you give me 15% off? Can you remove some of that cost to make it cheaper? And that was incredibly embarrassing. So please do not haggle. It is not normal in Czech Republic. The price which you see is usually the price which you pay. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave us a like, comment, and also subscribe. And remember, you should grab our food and restaurant guide to know some of the best places to eat in Prague in the description. Now check out this video right here to find out the best way to spend 3 days or a weekend in Prague. So see you in the next one.